Hi. Today we've got the second sort of foundational lecture to go through when it comes to making an MSWord document a truly editable document, and that is the topic of styles, or style sheets, as you'll also hear it referred to. So by styles, we're talking about a paragraph style. So a paragraph can have a collection of formatting. So it's what are its indents, what are its tabs, what font does it use can be included, does it have space before it, does it have space after, some of the things that we saw in the last lesson. Any of those things packaged together to make a paragraph look the way a paragraph looks. And of course what we do is we format our paragraph for a purpose. So if it's a basic text paragraph within a document, well, it looks a certain way. If it's going to be a caption under a figure, it's going to look a different way. And so what we want to do is we want to capture all of that formatting, all those characteristics of a particular paragraph, and we want to capture it in a style for that paragraph. And what that then does is it allows us to apply that style to any paragraph that has that same purpose. And it will then adopt all of the characteristics that we applied in the style sheet. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that styles are probably the least understood or worst understood and least used characteristic or capability within Microsoft Word. But it's also an absolutely essential one if you're going to make truly consistent and editable documents. Now, you may go on after and take those style sheets and they become the backbone for building templates along with some macros and some other things that you can do, a framework document. We may or may not ever get there, but you will absolutely be using styles because you will use other people's templates. I hate to say it, but I don't think most people make really good templates. But if you can make a good style sheet, you're going to be well ahead of the game when it comes to having an editable document that you can work on with your colleagues. So let's have a look and see what it looks like. Okay, so we're back in our document, and now that we know what a style is, or a style sheet, what it does, what we want to do is we have to figure out how to make it happen, how to do it within MSWord. So we're back in our document. We have a whole bunch of paragraphs in here. You can see where the paragraph marks are, but we haven't applied any formatting to it. So let's have a quick look around the document and see where we can find the information on styles. So if we look up to the ribbon and we're in our home tab and we go across, we see there's a whole section on styles. And across the top, it gives us a selection of the different styles that are built in the document. We can drop it down and we can see more. Okay, and you can also see, create a style, clear formatting, apply styles, some drop-down boxes. And then if we click on this little arrow, it will bring up the style sheet. And there you see a list of most of the built-in styles that we can access. We can use the formatting that comes built in, or we can modify them, but we can also add to this list and we can create styles specific to our needs. And that's what we're going to get on about shortly. So I'm going to close that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to create a basic paragraph style. I mean, in just about every document, you're just going to put in a whole bunch of general text that is going to carry our message. And this is separate from the headings and the footings and the captions and all those other types of styles that we'll get to later. But let's build the fundamental building block, which is a paragraph style. Okay. So there's a number of ways we can create a style. We've seen a couple of them as we looked around the program. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to drop this down and I'm going to say new style. And it opens up the new style for formatting. So we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it para because it's going to serve as the fundamental style for all of my typed paragraphs. Style type, it's a paragraph style. It's going to be based on the normal style. So we have a normal style. It comes as one of the pre-formatted styles. This is one that I would encourage you not to change.
all of the styles that are in that come pre-formatted are based on the normal styles. The last thing we want to do is go changing the normal style, because it could update or change the look of all of those other styles. So not the place we want to be. So that's why we're going to create a new style separate from the normal style that we're going to use as our fundamental building block. Now, this one, we're going to use it later. We're not going to use it right now. So style for following paragraph. It will assume that it wants the same style, another paragraph is the same style. When you hit enter and you go into a new paragraph, it's going to assume that you want another of the same, unless we choose this. So in paragraphs, when we're doing fundamental paragraphs, they're normally followed by another paragraph of the same style. In headings, for example, we don't want that. We actually, you have a heading, you rarely follow it by another heading, you usually follow it by a paragraph. So you would choose a paragraph here when building a heading style, and we'll try to remember to highlight that later when we're in it. We can set up our font and everything else. So let's choose Times New Roman. It's a good, as a serif font, it's a good font to be used in your general text. 12 point might be a little bit better than 11. We don't want bold or anything else. If you want to change your justification, this is where you could do it. Of course, it's giving us a preview of what it's going to look like, so you can have a quick gander at that. I wouldn't really worry too much if you don't get it perfect, because we're going to also show you how to modify it, which is really not that hard. And if you're wondering what all the different formatting you can do in a style, just look down at the bottom list. We can format the font, the paragraph, the tabs, the borders. I mean, we can do just about anything in a style. We're going to keep, for the most part, to the basic ones here in the paragraph style or the font styles, but there is a lot you can do. And we're going to hit OK. And so now it has applied that to this paragraph. You see, it hasn't done anything special for spacing. It hasn't done anything indents or anything else, but it has applied that font to what we want. And it has now been added. We can see it over here in the style sheet, and we can see it up at the top where it's popped it in, and we can choose it from there. So not exactly what I am looking for. Most common these days is to have a little bit of space that separates paragraphs. So why don't we add an extra line so that we don't get into the bad habit of adding a bunch of extra character turns to create that space between paragraphs? Why don't we build it right into the paragraph itself? So let's do that. So the easiest way for me to do that is I'm going to choose, well, not the easiest way, the most fundamental way is I'm going to choose to modify my style. Let's close the style sheet, and we'll go up to paragraph. We're going to right click, and we're going to choose modify. And right down here, I'm going to choose format. I'm going to go into the paragraph dialog box and put a little bit of space after. Now, I usually, as I think I mentioned in a previous tutorial, put all of my space either before or after, so that it's consistent between the various different styles, and I know where it is, and I can accommodate it when I'm doing different styles. So I'll put a single line, which is about 12 points, after, and I'm going to hit OK. I hit OK, it updates it, and so I'm getting pretty happy with that as a fundamental style. So depending on the type of document you're in, you might want to include paragraph numbering or something like that. I'll do a tutorial later on paragraph numbering and some of the different options and how to configure that. But for now, for most technical documents, this is probably what you're looking for. So we have a style. We've created it, we've modified it, we've got it exactly the way we want. Now what we need to do is to make sure that all of the paragraphs in the document that have the same purpose are also associated with the same style. And so we have a bunch of paragraphs down there. They're all based on the normal style. You see if I click on them, it highlights the normal style. But we want them to be basic paragraphs. So there's a number of different ways you can do that. We can highlight one of the paragraphs and choose up here in the box, click on paragraph, and it will associate now with the paragraph style. The other way to do it, or many ways to do it, is we can do that. We can use our Format Painter brush over here. If I click on it, it's like taking a paintbrush and dipping it in your palette of styles, if you will. And we pick up the paragraph style because that's what we had selected when we clicked on our paintbrush. And now when I go down here and I choose this paragraph, it's going to paint it with that style. Okay, and we're seeing those types of features in a lot of different programming and photo editing and everything else. So you're probably familiar with it. It's becoming more and more common. One thing to remember is that was a single click. If we double click on this and we go down here, we choose a paragraph, it updates it, but it stays selected. So now we can go and choose a different paragraph. So maybe you have discontinuous paragraphs, so you couldn't select them all at the same time, and we choose it, and it will paint it with the same style. Okay, so let's just do that for the rest of them. We'll get everything selected, and there we go. You see, we have all of our paragraphs. They're all of the appropriate font for the purpose. They all have the space behind it, and everything is great. Now, what's the power in this? The real power in using our styles is in the editing, which is, of course, the whole purpose of these series of tutorials is to create a document ready for editing. So your colleague or your boss or your supervisor comes along and says, I checked with the publisher and he wants this to have a hanging indent on the first line. So how do we modify the style to have a hanging indent? And so let's do the easiest way. We can go up to the modify like we did before, but in this case, what I want to do is I just want to bring up my paragraph dialog box, and I'm going to come over here and create a first line indent. 1/2 inch. I hit OK, that's great. Now, what it's done is it's applied that very specific characteristic or format to this paragraph alone. So it's got the basic style, but then it has superimposed on that any specific formatting that you choose after you apply the style. And now what we want to do is we want to say, no, we would like to update our style to be reflective of that paragraph. And so the easiest way to do that is we go up to paragraph and we right click and we say update para to match the current selection. So we do everything we want to do to that paragraph, and we say now let's update the style, and you see it updates the style, and once it updates the style, it proliferates itself through the entire document to make all of the paragraphs that have that same style look exactly the same. And this is the real power in styles, is that it ties it together, it makes it consistent, and it makes edits almost effortless. And it'll save us a heck of a lot of time in the teamwork as people make additions and make edits and make changes to it. I mean, to be fair, if you have a technical document done up appropriately or properly with styles, and you decide to change who you're going to publish with, and they have a completely different style sheet that they want you to use for that publication, it won't take you particularly long to modify your styles and update your entire document to be appropriate for the new publisher. Okay, so we have our basic style, para, and it's there. Just to demonstrate that we're going to have a selection of styles for the different types of paragraphs in it, let's add another one. So I'm just going to pop in an equation in here, and we're going to format a paragraph appropriate for hosting equations or displaying equations. So I'm just going to pop in here. I'm going to be quiet for a bit because my intention is I'm just going to accelerate this thing through. Okay, so I've just popped in a quick equation, a common one for engineers of my type, and now we want to make sure that it's displayed in the document the way we want the equation to display. So I'm just going to choose some common formatting for technical documents, but you would choose the formatting that's appropriate to you. So it thinks it's in a paragraph style right now, but what we want to do is to create an equation style. So I'm going to do this one by setting or formatting this paragraph to be exactly the way I want, and then create the style based on that formatting. So we want to get rid of our first line indent. So I'm just going to drag that over to the left. And I could center this. So that would be fairly easy. I'm going to go to the Home tab. I could choose center. And as long as I don't have an equation number on the right, that would be fine. Now, because I'm probably going to want to have an equation number set up, we'll do that as part of a later part of the tutorial. Rather than have it center the entire paragraph, the equation number would throw that off. I'm going to use a tab. So I'm going to undo this. I'm going to left justify the paragraph. I'm going to put in a tab. So I want a centering tab. So there, I'm going to change that to centering tab. And this is 6.5 inches. So at 3.25 inches, I'm going to put a centering tab. So I'll just put it in. And then in anticipation of putting in an equation number, I'm going to put a right justified tab right over to the margin. And we'll use those, we'll use the first one right now. I'll hit tab. You'll see it's put in a tab here, and it's brought my equation into the center. Now, if I were to tab over here and say equation 1-1, again, I will show you a little bit later on how to get those numbering themselves automatically so that we're not updating them or editing them every time we change the order that the equations are showing up in our document. But for now, just to show the style, we'll put it there. So we still have the space after. That's great. For the most part, I'm pretty happy with that. If I can make a style so that any subsequent equations I put in, I can just paint that style onto them, that's going to save me a little bit of effort. So I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to say create a style equation. And now, so if this was previously a paragraph, now if it's an equation, it's going to look like that. And so we've got a second style that we can modify, edit, change, apply to other paragraphs. And even though it's been a little bit of effort to set that up right now, it's going to save us a lot of effort downstream. So that's probably the fundamentals of how to set up a style, how to modify a style, how to apply that style to other paragraphs. And you're kind of seeing how it's all coming together into a style sheet. I'll open up my style sheet. Again, you see now we have a paragraph, we have an equation style, all of those are there. And we're going to build that or modify it so that we have the entire style sheet the way we want our document to display. We know some of these are special. We're going to be looking next at headings because we need to build the framework around our document with chapter headings and other subheadings. And those are really important that we use those specific styles because they're dealt with in a very special way, particularly when it comes to automating a table of contents. Just like captions are used when generating a list of figures or a list of tables. And so we're going to look at all of that as we look at each of those capabilities independently. So there's the basics of styles. Again, other than the fundamentals of typesetting, I think it is probably the most important thing that you can learn when it comes to creating an editable document. And I guess the other thing I would say is make sure that your colleagues are familiar with them and using them effectively as well, because then you're working together as a team in a really synchronous way and being particularly effective. It can be the reason why I got into teaching these tutorials on MSWord is when my students wouldn't know how to do this, and I would expect them to be able to do certain edits and whatnot. And it became very onerous on them because they didn't know what to do. Or if I gave them a document which had been set up properly, then they would inevitably go through and break the styles and not use the styles, and I would have to go fix the document after to keep it working and keep it editable. So that's it for now. We'll see you shortly as we cover heading styles.